Hello and welcome to this video. Today I'm going to present to you my 2010 project. My 2010 project was something that I've been thinking about for about 3 years, and it's basically an attempt to modify the traditional internal combustion engine, which is a type of engine that's found in cars. This modification was supposed to make this engine be 6 times more efficient than the best hybrid car today, or about 300 miles per gallon. This video will try to explain how a gasoline engine works, how I wanted to modify it to make a super engine, and how it didn't work very well at the end. So most of us drive in a car every day, but have any of us ever wondered how it works on the inside? Some of you might have, some of you perhaps not. But let me provide a brief explanation for you right now. The power a car has comes from something called the engine block. Typically it looks like this. It's got these cylinders that move up and down inside of the cylinder housing. As these cylinders reciprocate up and down, they turn an angled pole called the crankshaft, which rotates and produces a turning force called rotary motion. This rotary motion is transferred to the wheels, which cause the car to move. But what makes these cylinders move up and down? The answer is actually small gasoline explosions happening thousands of times per minute inside the airtight space of the cylinder housing. After an explosion goes off, the only way the explosion can release its energy is if it pushes the cylinder down, therefore turning the crankshaft. The key to my attempted modification is the pushing force from the explosion. Essentially, to come up with this idea, I asked myself the question, could I replace the pushing force from the gasoline with some other force? Something like the repulsion of magnets with opposite poles. Let's think about this. When we put two magnets of opposite poles together, they stick. But when you try to force like poles of two magnets together, there is a significant force trying to prevent you from pushing them together. This is the force that I wanted to harness to push the cylinders up and down. Going back to that picture of the engine, I'll show you what I mean. We make the piston out of a type of magnet called neodymium iron boron, which is the strongest type of magnet in the world, and then put a large electromagnet on top of the piston housing, like this. When we turn on the electromagnet so that the piston and the electromagnet have like poles facing each other, the piston will repel away from the electromagnet and shoot down the cylinder housing, just like in a traditional gas engine. Now I'll show you what I actually built for my 2010 project as a model for how a car engine works, just to make it clear how my engine and a traditional gas engine works. So this is the wood and PVC pipe model that I built for my 2010 project. It's got two pistons that are mounted onto a crankshaft, and this crankshaft does turn. It's not powered or complete though. I guess you could say that once I realized that my idea didn't really work, I decided to devote more time on figuring out how to make it better and how to design a different engine instead of trying to finish something that I knew wouldn't work. Anyways, how does a gasoline engine work? Well, let's see, you've got two pistons. When the crankshaft is perfectly up and down like as it is right now, you've got one piston that's up, one piston that's down. Take this up piston inside of its piston housing, and the piston is up inside of its piston housing, so there's a very small space between the top of the piston housing and the top of the piston itself. Inside of this small space is a lot of gasoline ready to be ignited, and once it is ignited, like this, it pushes the crankshaft around a half rotation. Now what happens is, when this one is down, this one is now in the up position, and the process repeats with the gasoline exploding, turning the crankshaft around a half rotation over and over again, and that's what creates the motion. Now what about how did I attempt to modify this to an electromagnetic engine? Well, let's say this. We take one of the engines, the pistons, and take the piston head, okay, and make this out of a very highly magnetic metal. Then, when we put this in up position and put an electromagnet on top of it, like right here, that's not on, that when we turn it on, the like poles of this magnet and the electromagnet will be facing each other. The piston will want to repel away from the electromagnet really fast. And so this, when we turn the electromagnet on, it will fire down the piston. And the same thing happens on that side, and that side, and that side, and it keeps going. Now, what exactly happens with this firing and pushing? Well, the end result, the motion of the crankshaft from both engines, looks kind of like this. So now on to why this doesn't work. After I had gotten stuck for a long while, I asked myself the question, will this really work? 300 miles per gallon seems like a bit of a stretch, doesn't it? One of the things I thought about to answer this question was, what goes into and what comes out of the respective engines? A gasoline engine takes in gasoline and air. The outcome is rotary motion. In between, we have reciprocal motion. Reciprocal motion is basically the type of up-down motion that the pistons exhibit. My engine takes in electricity. The outcome is a rotary motion. Then I thought, wait a minute. That sounds awfully like something that's already invented called a motor. A motor takes in electricity and changes it directly into rotary motion. I've built essentially a very inefficient motor. That's all it is, really. This thing that I've been thinking about for 3 years is essentially a very inefficient motor. Well, that's about it for today. I moved on from this idea over the course of 20 time, but I'm glad that 20 time gave me the opportunity to spot the mistake in my logic before I had a chance to move on farther with my project. Now I'm working on perhaps making the gasoline engine more efficient by coming up with an engine design that turns the power of exploding gasoline directly into rotary motion. Hopefully that works. I'll see you, and thanks for watching.